Right, so last week we did the recap of Revelation 1 through 5. Before we get into anything, did anyone have any looming questions about that? I think we got through it pretty well, but I just wanted to give the opportunity if there were any. So, we're moving into what I would almost say is not necessarily a shift, because we saw that happen in 4 from at least the way we're looking at letters to the churches, and then the things to be, the things to come. We get to Revelation 6, where we're going to start seeing John use imagery to describe the events that are going to take place on earth and in heaven during the tribulation period. So this chapter is all about like the 7 sealed document, the seals being cracked open. Then we'll encounter the 7 trumpets, the 7 bowls. And from what I've looked at, for many people, I mean, there's a lot of difficulty in interpreting the next several chapters as we go through Revelation, because there's a lot of highly symbolic nature of the language being used. Is John describing events in metaphors, or is he hiding like an image and an allegory kind of thing? Was this a present reality for John as he's witnessing all this, or what? Or something that is coming? I know we've talked about the 4 different views of Revelation. Okay, I'm going to rattle them off real quick.
Preterist, historic, futuristic, and something else.
Idealist. So, well, here at Frontline Bible Church, we're more of that futurist approach, maybe with some little bit of eclectic stuff, because, you know, we like to acknowledge as we use the historical grammatical method the events actually happening during the time of John. But I wanted to make a note, if you're handling this from like a preterist perspective, as I think we have at least one person in here who might have encountered that more, maybe a couple, you could try to interpret some of these events as things like Nero's persecution of Christians, the fire in Rome. If you date this early to like AD 64, I think we've been working with about AD 90-ish in this class. There were major earthquakes in AD 60. There was the eruption of Vesuvius in AD 79. There was a great famine in 92. Maybe it's all the above that John's doing a commentary on. Personally, I think we've gone through several times at this point, like I don't want to necessarily say the stronger approach, but in my mind, the already not yet kind of idea. There are things that were already a present reality, but many things not yet to be. So we've been dating this around AD 90. Does anyone know what was happening to the church at that time, or does anyone remember? Persecution by who?
Rome.
Nero?
Specifically, not Nero. It was a guy who ruled from 81 to 96.
The only other name I know is Constantine, and it's not him.
It's okay, Brandon. You're gonna have to help
Okay.
me.
Domitian.
Oh yes, because it's like
Domitian
John.
would have been
Domitian.
ruler at that time.
Okay.
And we've also talked with that already, not yet, like this like telescopic nature of prophecy. So like, I mean, we kind of use that example of like Isaiah 7, and this is going way back to March when we last maybe talked about this. Like, okay, it had meaning that there was going to be a birth coming from a virgin back then for Israel at that time. And then you zoom out, you go further into the future, and then what do you see? The birth of Christ. So it's that kind of, you get more clarity as God's revelation progresses as we go through history itself. So as we go through the seals, the bowls, the trumpets, the structure of these events are important because it affects how you actually understand the book, how you read it. So we're going to do something a little weird. You might have noticed on your sheets 3 different things, I think, under the heading seals, trumpets, and bowls. Oh my. Some things we'll kind of see as we look through that. Like the first 4 elements are paralleled, as in like the first 4 seals. There's some relation there between those followed by a fifth and sixth event which seem related, and then a seventh which would close it out. But we'll start going into this.
I knew it.
This was last week.
I knew you were gonna do the board flip.
I've been waiting for an excuse to do that.
I know.
Okay. This is going to probably be the biggest nerd out for,
Is there
I
any
imagine, John and
chance
Glenn
to
more
move the
than
board that
some
you could
others.
slide it a little bit that way?
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
I like mine,
Just
but I
slide
don't
it
see
back
what
over.
you're writing now.
Burrito. No,
S.
no,
Can anyone guess what the letter S is?
Seals.
Seals, trumpets, bowls.
Oh my.
So this is something that I never thought about until I actually took the class last year. Daniel and Revelation, the apocalyptic literature of our canon. Do the seals all have to happen and then all the trumpets happen and then the bowls happen? Are they mentioning the same events that are like concurrent? So like we talk about that telescopic nature thing. So as Revelation, as we go through each chapter, is it talking about events that get more and more clear as things unfold? So I'm gonna write some numbers up here that signify like, okay, first seal, second seal, third seal, fourth seal, so on. So this is the sequential approach. Wow, I'm running out of room real quick.
Yes. Do you feel like a real teacher now?
No,
Oh, sorry.
no, it's okay.
We did that someplace. I wrote that
I
down.
know.
I wrote that down someplace.
Okay, that just continues on. So this is like the sequential approach to the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls. You can try and see that.
I don't know where it is.
So after the seventh seal, that's when the trumpets would start. So 1, 2, 3, 4. After that, then you would get the bowls. 1, 2, 3. I think that might be what I would say is that maybe the easiest way to understand this, especially like when we're used to reading a book continuously. I mean, you would expect usually events to happen in a sequential order as you go through. Okay, here's each event occurring one after another. Curious, have you guys been taught that before?
Yeah.
I thought we talked about that.
Okay,
I've not seen it right now, but
okay.
I thought we did.
I kind of remember Ben saying something like it may not be that, and they could be kind of happening, not necessarily concurrently, but kind of concurrently.
Yeah,
Simultaneously.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
let me make sure.
That could be an option. Nothing set in stone, obviously.
So then the other option is like the repetition way or the recapitulation. Does everyone have that written down? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to erase this so I can use the board a little more fully.
But all the hard work.
That's okay.
They don't work that hard.
So that was the sequential. So now we move into recapitulation.
Are you numbering 1 through 7 right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Just bigger.
Cool.
Yeah, closer up.
Restatement or reworking of the exposition in the tonic
Oh, that's
constituting
real clear.
the third and final section of the typical sonata from archive of the concept of
If you wanna count the numbers off, so you can look at the board.
So there would be the trumpets progressing through it.
So they in between?
Yeah.
But they end at the
Yes,
same
they line, they're around, they will all end at the same time, yes.
Okay.
So by at least the time 2 occurs, the first trumpet would be around then. Second trumpet around the same time as 3. Then they start to line up a little more as you get there, and then you get to the bowls, which would start
Bones.
really quickly. Why am I starting on 3?
I don't know.
That's a great question.
I know he needs me to tell him the numbers, like 1.
I'm still figuring out counting.
I can help you with that.
Amy,
That's why I teach my kids.
Jen
So-
says she wants to teach and she can write them on the board, right?
Exactly.
So each sequence, like final judgment, as you get to 7,
And simultaneously?
they seem, this is the argument from this position, they seem to point to the second coming. Because they all end at the same point.
okay. So they just get like faster.
Yes, yeah. So it's like that idea, everything's moving toward getting more detailed till the second coming.
I wrote that one.
The 7th seal, maybe like a moment of silence before the 7th trumpet sounds, which is praise, and then the return of Christ, and then the next bowl is put out.
Was that, on your board, is that meant that the 7s all end at the same time?
Yes,
He just said that.
I
He was
walked
out
out
of
to
the
get my
room.
water, so, okay, so you're saying they all end at the same
they
time? They're
all
just
end at the same time under the,
Representing the second coming.
yes.
But they're, okay, but they're starting later.
They are starting later.
But they're more condensed, so it's okay.
Yeah, it's not like a perfect lineup, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2,
Gotcha.
2, 2, 2. Because if you try to line them up, I think you would, I mean, it would look awkward pretty quickly, because you're like, okay, how's Wrath? Anyway.
Right.
And these are the 3 approaches that you're bringing
Yeah,
towards.
yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right on. I'll pick it up.
Let
with
me ask the
you.
wild card question. While we're doing this in chapter 6, it doesn't really ever say, this is a question, I'm sorry, I'm stating it like a statement. The tribulation,
Tribulation would, I mean, this would be the start of the tribulation.
well, and is that you're reading it, or is that this is all the things that are happening during the, let's call it the tribulation? That's my question.
So you're, okay. This is all tribulation.
Is it
From the
coming
minute-
from the message? From the word?
Okay,
The word tribulation is used in the Bible. It says, these are all, this is a tribulation, bang.
okay.
Is it like the
So-
Trinity? Is that where you're getting at? Where the Trinity is actually nowhere in the Bible, but it is in the Bible?
I'm just asking is like,
Do they
so
explicitly
the
call
beginning
it?
of chapter 6 doesn't say, this is 1,000-year tribulation, because that wouldn't count anyway, because that's
Right.
not.
Tribulation would be 3.5 years of bad, 3.5 years of worse.
Okay, well, I'm not trying to argue about time, dates, or anything. I'm just trying to say,
The word itself.
where are you coming up with this is a tribulation? Because all the things that are happening, they indicate the tribulation.
Yes.
That's what you're saying. It doesn't come around and say, page 747 says this is the tribulation.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
So all that is happening.
Does anyone have any questions about this before we like try to compare all these views?
So you saying all these bowls, seals, and trumpets are happening during the tribulation, not after?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. This is all happening during the tribulation. But this is showing them as concurrent.
Is it the
events.
first half or the second half or throughout?
It
Yeah.
would be over the
Yes.
entire.
Yeah.
It would be over
Yes.
the entire duration of the
So
tribulation.
all 7 years.
Where that line is it here? Is it here?
This is
This,
so the 3 things that he's approaching on this paper are 3 viewpoints as to look at the first 7 chapters.
Okay.
Whether or not they work congruently in one's big span or if they overlap each other. And he hasn't told us which one that he thinks is true. He's just representing these right now. So
I'm doing what I would call window shopping.
right,
Thank you, Glenn.
sure.
Makes sense.
Now are you gonna do modified?
This one's the weird one.
I know, it's great.
Is this one gonna be 1, 2, 6, 3, 4, 5?
No, they're all in order still. It's just the way it's numbered is.
Fun.
As long as he gets the numbers from 1 to 7 correct.
Start with one.
He didn't get to
Always
give
start-
his
always
teachers
start-
kind of hard time, but
Oh,
then
you gotta start with
his
7
teachers
and
wasn't
write
talking
backwards.
to teachers that taught college for a living.
I'd like to think Brandon could teach college. Future Kyle Bay.
That was a statement about me, Sarah. I have many years in college.
Oh, really?
And being a superintendent over 350 teachers that taught college. And I had to evaluate them all the time. And John's getting ready to say, shut up, Dad. That's all right, I can handle it.
We love you, Ed.
That's right.
Okay.
Really?
All right.
Like I said, this one's kind of the odd one.
And I'm assuming the last line should be is the bold.
Do 1 and 7 line up?
Do, yes,
Okay.
these line up. And then these line up.
And then
So basically as
ball 1 lines up with trumpet 3.
1 and 3 line up,
Yeah.
is that what you're, thereabouts?
Ish.
That's why it's called modified.
That's why it's.
You can
I
move
mean,
it around
you
a little
can-
bit.
This can be moved around a little bit, you could play with it. But this is a general approach that, from what I've seen, that some of them who take this use. So at the end, this would still be second coming. Okay? As you can see with this one, as things start to progress past the 7th seal, you start getting the trumpets blowing, and then the bowls are very rapid, one thing after another. So I wanted to show you these 3 views to kind of see if you guys have been, well, number 1, exposed to any of them before. So it sounds like any of this, has this ever been a question that's kind of prompted in
No,
your brain
I've never
before,
studied it in this
are
detail
these,
before.
okay.
No, I haven't.
So I was shown these 3 views by a guy named Dr. Philip Long,
Yeah.
and I was just sitting there like, it's not a normal question that I would think to ask.
True.
So I guess what, and obviously we haven't gone through all the book yet, but the question I want to give you guys is, does one of these seem, at least at this point as we're going through the book, more realistic than the others? Does one of them seem like it has more grounds?
The one that makes most sense is the sequential.
Is
Just
this
because
sequential? It's the easiest to read.
It's easiest
It's
to
the
read,
easiest to
and
read.
it's like uniform. So I'm like, that one's done now. This one starts. This one's done now. That one starts. I don't know. That's just my thought. Makes the most sense to me.
Makes the most sense. Okay. Anyone else?
I kind of like the second one, I think.
You like the modified one? Where it's
No, the repetition.
repetition?
Yeah. Just because
What?
it's like the same story, it's just like okay, now it's
It's
sped
getting
up.
clearer.
And now it's even more sped up.
Mhm.
And each time you're getting, I don't know if they're giving you different information.
That's kind of what's advocating
So it's kind
for.
of like each time you're reading through it, you're getting more.
Yes.
So I like that one.
Yeah, so each of the seals happens, and then as you go through, the trumpets are retelling some concurrent events in more detail. And then you add the bowls on top of that, and there's more detail added,
And they all end at the same time.
and they all end at the same time. So it still has that, it has an ending point, that being the second coming, and, I mean, as I, so the 7th seal, that's moment of silence in heaven. 7th trumpet that's played, that's praise. 7th bowl, return of Christ, and then 7th bowl poured out would be that view. So, okay, God, judgment's happening right there. And if you look at each of those series between as we go through this, the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls, like demonic and activity increases in each of those sets. So if it is, you know, we believe that, okay, this is the Antichrist rising to power throughout this time period, it would make sense that demonic activity is escalating
Yeah.
as each of those things happens, right? Yeah, I could follow that. The modified view, that one's still, I'm wrestling with that one still. Okay, we have one for sequential, we have another for the repetition or recapitulation. Anyone else want to take a stab at?
I kind of like the recapitulation idea because they all end simultaneously, and I'm like, why do we want this drug out any longer than necessary?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
awful.
Fair enough.
End it already.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know that I necessarily think that's the right one. I just think,
Well, you still have 21 full chapters in the whole thing, so you
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
a ways to go after chapter
Yeah.
7. So
So,
My brother believes in the modified view. I don't know why, but his explanation is, well, during the first half, it's kind of bad. And then you get to the second half, which is kind of like where 7 and 1 lines up.
yeah.
And then it's a little bit okay, but then it get real bad because you have all the bad stuff going on together. So,
So for him, it would give him a pretty even, like 3.5 years of bad, 3.5 years of worse.
yeah.
I think that'd be a fair observation. Pastors, thoughts, wrestlings,
We have so many.
Still wrestling.
still wrestling.
I've always leaned to the sequential. That's always
Sequential?
been, that's always been the way
I
that
think
I've read
that's
it.
probably the default for most.
Yeah, it's because that's the way it reads.
Yeah.
So I really have not gone deep into my view. So until I'm convinced otherwise,
Yeah.
I would probably still lean
And
towards
that's the way our
sequential.
mind works.
if you're looking at the passage, you're looking at scripture, and you're looking at what occurs, you'll see easily that the first 4 of everything happens very rapidly.
Yeah.
The second 2 take time, and between the 6th and the 7th of whatever, there's always a gap. There's always some kind of monologue or something like that that kind of goes in between there. If you're gonna, if there was a hill I was gonna die on, sequential makes more sense, but the modified actually works a little bit more in tune with what you're looking for. The seals and the trumpets
Yeah.
are basically the first 3.5. The last 3.5, after Satan makes a play for heaven and gets kicked out, it ramps up. Everything ramps up, and it all revolves around his desire to have people. That's when the mark of the beast comes around. That's when he wants people to worship him. We know that God's a very jealous God, and that doesn't work out very well for a lot of people. All the people that take the mark of the beast, you have to understand that people back in this time may not even be able to buy food for their family. So taking the mark may be the only way to feed your family. But taking that mark actually condemns you to the lake of fire, which was originally designed by God for only Satan and the angels himself. So you get put in a place that's not even designed for your eternal soul. It was for other things, and that just sucks on a level that you can't even imagine.
Well, and then the locusts go after you.
Yeah.
You take the mark.
Yeah. So I mean, it's
The locusts are bad news, man.
so I guess if I was gonna, sequential is probably a little more where I'd go, but modified isn't too bad. Although I wouldn't separate it the way it's separated
I was
here.
gonna say, would you separate
Well, you
seals
can
and
modify the
trumpets, those would
Yeah,
be
I would
kind of
modify the
together.
modify.
Yeah.
And then the last one would
My
be,
modification.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just put them all over here.
Now you're gonna switch 6 and 7 and
What if we do reverse order?
reverse order.
So
Dyslexic.
Only odd.
I think, like I said, I'm still wrestling with this. I think, as you just explained, modified, you might have just pushed me that direction a little more. But,
It's
yeah,
That's how in the studies that I've done, which, for all it's worth, that seems like that's
Yeah.
kind of the play. It's, you have that boom, ba-doom, ba-doom, you know, those first four always, in the seals and the trumpets, they're always very quick. Repetition, repetition. Then the next two take some time and they have a little bit more context to them, a little more meat on that bone, and then there's always a gap in between that final thing, that final seal or that final trumpet. But when the bowls come, I mean, all bets are off. It just,
It's bad.
oh yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
And it's that's when the real wrath of God kind of stuff comes, and it comes because of Satan's play for humanity. He can't take what God has, so he wants to take what God made, and that just isn't a good look on him. You know, he can't get what God's got, so then he turns to mankind and really puts the screws to mankind, his greatest creation, and then that's what. That's
So
what
then it
pushes.
begs the question, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't.
Next question to you.
Well, why does it matter?
Why does it matter?
There you go.
And does it matter?
Yeah. Like, why are we looking at it? Is there?
No, I'm just saying,
Because
does it
based
matter
on-
with either of those views? Does it matter which one you hold to in the way that you read?
Does it matter? So, I would say if we're being,
It's not a salvation issue.
well,
That's
it's not a
what I was
salvation.
saying. That's what I just said.
Is there an
As some-
eschatological
So as-
eschatological view that makes it?
I don't mean to be a jerk about it. I'm just.
Oh, no, that's
I'm
a
asking- I'm just-
fantastic
I'm
question.
just asking
You're
the
asking
That's a
question.
fantastic
General
question.
You're asking the
Does
right
it really matter?
As someone who believes in a pre-tribulation rapture, doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong on this in my head, because I won't be here for it.
I'm sorry, say that again.
As someone who believes in a
What if it
pre-tribulation,
didn't work out for you?
Right.
if I get left behind, I'm
Great book series for
gonna
you.
keep.
Then maybe you're Jewish. Just kidding.
You know, in high school, I did have a little bit longer, curlier hair,
Hey.
and people used to ask me if I was because of that and my nose. So, and I just said L'chaim.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah. So, if you are taking, let's say, the preterist approach, for example, you might be more comfortable with this idea that the concurrent events occurring in greater detail. Because for you, it might not necessarily matter, okay, this idea of sequence, because the whole thing that John is writing on is actual events that are happening right now. So it might make more sense, okay, John's just writing the same events in greater detail as they're occurring. Or he's reflecting back on them. If you were a preterist who dated it later for some reason, that'd be odd. But so there's one approach. If you're doing it sequential, or in maybe the modified approach that Glenn just proposed, that would almost make more sense from a dispensational perspective, at least I think, because you're getting your 3.5 years of bad and 3.5 years of worse as it lines up. So that's kind of the why behind it. So based on how you structure these could affect other ways you might interpret it, or I should say based on the position you start with for the four views, you're probably going to interpret these things differently. That might be a more accurate way to state it. So that's kind of the why. There's another sidebar that I don't necessarily want to get into, but I'll just briefly mention it. As we go through this section, I think I shared, this would have been way back in March too, so all three of the Synoptic Gospels, which are Matthew, Mark,
Yeah.
Luke, they all have the Olivet Discourse in them. Does John have the Olivet Discourse in it? No. So, something to kind of make note of, something cool, at least at this point in the book. Maybe that's why John left it out of his gospel, because he knew he would be writing about it later. maybe that was a separate thing that happened. He's like, you know what, I'm gonna save this. This is gonna be its own thing that I'm gonna write about and then put out. So, and then I saw a comparison chart. I don't wanna put that on the board because I think it's a cool concept, but there are certain things that just don't line up as much once you start to just get into the nitty gritty of it, so. All right, let's get into the first seal.
How exciting.
Now I watched when the Lamb opened one of the 7 seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures say with a voice like thunder, "Come." And I looked, and behold, a white horse, and its rider had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he came out conquering and to conquer. Do we want to read through this whole thing and then double back, guys? And then go through each one?
That's you, man.
Let's do that. You want to take the next 2 verses?
Sure.
Just go 2 in a row.
3 and 4.
Yep.
When he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, "Come and see." And another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and that people should kill one another, and there was given to him a great sword.
When the Lamb opened the 3rd seal, I heard the 3rd living creature say, "Come." I looked, and there before me was a black horse, its rider holding a pair of scales in his hand. When I heard what sounded like the voice among the 4 living creatures, saying, 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages, and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wages, and do not damage the oil and the wine.
When he opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th living creature say, "Come." And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and its rider's name was Death, and Hades followed him. And they were given authority over 1/4 of the earth to kill with sword, and with famine, and with pestilence, and by wild beasts of the earth.
When he opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the witness they had borne. They cried out with a loud voice, "O sovereign Lord, holy and true, how long before you will judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth?"
Then each of them was given a white robe, and they were told to wait a little longer until the full number of their fellow servants, their brothers and sisters, were killed just as they had been. I watched as he opened the 6th seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red.
And the stars in the sky fell to the earth as late figs dropped from a fig tree when shaken by a strong wind. The sky receded like a scroll rolling up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place.
Then the kings of the earth, the princes, the generals, the rich, the mighty, and everyone else, both slave and free, hid in caves among the rocks of the mountains. They called to the mountains and the rocks, "Fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of the wrath has come, and who can withstand it?"
Sounds like a Metallica concert.
Wow.
Going on. So seal 1, the white rider. So this would be start of the tribulation, as seen by futurists, those who would hold to a pre-trib rapture like us. Most of us would agree on that. I would hope so. So let's examine, I guess one thing. Is there a rider later on in this book that seems like this first rider?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. We're going to be flipping back and forth a little bit. So let's go to Revelation 19, verse 10.
$19.10.
1910.
What a good year.
What happened that year, sir?
I don't know. They probably made wine.
1911 was better.
Which year?
1911.
1911? You talking like the firearm?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, sorry, 1911 I meant. Then I saw heavens open, and behold, a white horse. The one sitting on it is called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he judges and makes war. His eyes are like the flame of fire, and on his head are many diadems, and he has a name written that no one knows but himself. He is clothed in a robe dipped in blood, and the name by which he is called is the Word of God. And the armies of heaven, arrayed in fine linen, white and pure, were following him on white horses. From his mouth comes a sharp sword with which to strike down the nations, and he will rule them with a rod of iron. He will tread the winepress of the fury of the wrath of God the Almighty. On his robe and on his thigh he has a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Is that what your tattoo says?
No, mine is the Hebrew name of God. I am who I am. Close enough, though.
Okay. So let's compare these two riders. What are some of the, is there anything alike? Is there anything different?
White
What
horse.
stands-
White horse
okay,
is
white
the
horse.
same.
Yep.
Crown. Let me see a crown.
Crown, he was given a crown
Yeah.
to conquer the conquest.
Christ have a crown.
Yeah.
Did I read that or not?
No, his head has many crowns, so not just one, but many.
Okay. Is there a bow? Do you have a bow?
So the first rider had a bow, the second has a sword.
Mm-hmm. And you know, Christ is dipped in blood, so that's cool.
In blood. It's very metal.
Yeah, I just hope that I just hope we're able to see all this.
You want to see it?
I want to see it all.
Something about blood, what did you say, Sarah?
I said Christ was dipped in blood,
Are you
and
gonna be
then
there with a
Brandon
shirt
said
that says,
that's
"I'm here
so
for
metal, and
violence"?
then Seth went so metal.
I'm gonna be. I'm here for the
thought his
justice.
You're here
robe
for
was
the
dipped in
justice.
blood.
There we go. Not the violence.
Did I
the
miss
justice.
I need to get an AI to make a picture of each of the.
No, you don't. I
horses
drew
and
you a
riders.
picture.
So there is a parallel between both these riders. I mean, they're both starting on white horses. One of them is given a crown. They have different weapons. Do you think there might be? Why does it matter that one is? I mean, we see the sword, so that's a clear callback
Yep.
back to chapter 1. Right, sword coming out of the mouth.
Yes.
Okay, this one has a bow. Can anyone think of a time maybe in the Old Testament, because we've seen so far that John will pull a lot from the Old Testament to kind of draw certain conclusions. How is a bow used in the Old Testament when describing certain people groups? Have you ever noticed that before? Okay, will someone turn, I don't think we all need to.
Bows are it's a regal weapon, a ranged
Yes.
weapon, used specifically by higher up royalty because they never went into battle. They would always utilize it from a distance.
So they're kind of the historical sharpshooters of today.
No, they're cowards, but yeah.
Well,
They
I
just
mean,
didn't want to get
whatever.
their hands dirty, so they
Whatever,
would-
you've got a sharpshooter that's
Like
however
David?
many feet away from the battle,
Yeah.
right?
Real
Yeah.
king. He went there and slaughtered all the people. No coward.
Yeah, they would have these huge bow divisions that
Yeah.
would just rain
Yeah,
arrows down.
Yeah.
And,
Like Game of Thrones.
yeah.
I never
That's right.
watched the Game of Thrones, so
That's
But
good.
yeah,
No,
it was
like
just
in the
it was
300.
just a regal weapon that was utilized
There was
by
a plot on
a leading class person that they could use from a range and still feel part of the battle, but not actually have to get their hands dirty, so to speak.
So sometimes, I mean, in that idea of cowardice, a bow is the weapon used by the enemies of God. It's in a way marking them as less than. Will someone read Ezekiel 39:3? I don't think we all need to turn there, but at least one person could. You going there, Seth?
I'm working on it.
Where are we going?
Ezekiel 39:3.
Then how far? Just 3?
Yep, just 39-3.
Then I will knock the bow out of your hand, out of your left hand, and cause the arrows to fall out of your right hand. That's 3.
Yeah, okay. Maybe give us the first 2.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you, son of man, prophesy against Gog, and say, Thus says the Lord God, Behold, I am against you, O Gog, the prince of Rosh, Menesh, the Tibal. Whoa. And I will turn you around and lead you on, bringing you up from the far north, and bring you against the mountains of Israel. Then I will knock the bow out of your left hand and cause the arrows to fall out of your right hand.
So we're seeing an illustration with this white rider that it's clearly an enemy of God based on what he's doing, came out conquering and to conquer this tribulation period. The bow marked as a weapon of the enemies of God, and it's weird. You ever Genesis, the covenant made with Noah about I will put my bow in the sky so that you know that I'm not going to, flood the earth again. That idea of a bow, the imagery there, for us, our default is rainbow, but I forget whose commentary it was that I was looking it through, but it's that idea of like, I'm hanging my weapon, my bow. I am no longer mankind's enemy. I'm working with you as my plan of redemption is going to go forward. So there's a couple of different instances where that bow is used to mark as a weapon. So as comparing this white rider to Jesus at the end, the Son of Man, it's like this first horseman is an antichrist type figure. Thank you, Sarah.
The other thing too, you look at, he wants so badly to be like Christ,
Yeah.
And all that. And Christ gives a warning back in Matthew 24, 4 and 5. It's, Take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. And you don't have the Holy Spirit to reign in and have this intercession for wisdom and that. So there are going to be a lot of people that are deceived in that time of, thinking that it's Christ,
It's a, what's the word I'm thinking of? Parody. It's like this white rider is a parody of the real white rider to come. Seal 2, unless anyone had another thing.
Oh, you're done with 1?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Do what you're
No,
doing.
we can. Did anyone have any looming questions on 1?
So you agreed it's the Antichrist? Is that what you said?
I think that's what I'm seeing in there.
Somebody said that because I have false Christ written here.
false
reference to
Christ.
Matthew.
It's
Yeah.
the Antichrist.
Do you remember what I said about the guy who came up to me and told me what this represents?
No, please tell again.
Please repeat.
This first seal, guy that comes here, he said the first seal was COVID.
Oh, yeah, now I remember.
Yep, first seal was COVID.
Of course it was.
Yep, it was a white horse, and then it had a crown.
Oh, yes, I do remember saying that.
Yep, the word is Corona, so that's the word.
Wow.
And rode out as a conqueror, bent on conquest. And so I was like, wow.
What's the
interesting.
age range of this person?
This person was in his 60s.
Okay.
Yep. But I was like, well, but he's still here. He's a mid-trib guy, so he's
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think
that would make sense.
Okay.
yep. So he's ready to get out of here.
Aren't we all kind of ready to get out
Well,
of here?
there's
yet?
something to be said for that, that's for sure.
I mean,
Well, it's been how long
I don't
since?
know if anybody of us
Well,
would
yeah,
complain
so,
about that,
so,
right?
I mean, I just got
coronavirus came
married.
about the end
I'd like
of
to make 2 years.
2019.
Yeah.
That's when it was really kind of coming in, so end of 2019, so we've been, well, we missed the midway point, but still 7 years in. So, anyway, but I just thought, there's an example of, you take it and try to be as literal while still being, pull out the newspaper, doing my newspaper theology, we can come up with some
Curatorial.
interesting ones.
Are we supposed to read this as doomsday prophets?
Right.
Dan, anyone have any more on White Rider? Did you have some stuff, Glenn?
Well, you were comparing the two riders, right?
Yeah.
So they both rode on white horses. The significance of a white horse is
Victory.
right. The significance of a crown. Why do you get one?
Lord.
King,
King.
Yeah,
authority.
some authority.
somebody in authority.
So this person came and achieved something that recognized him as some authority amongst the people. So why did people get deceived? Well, this guy shows up.
Conquering and conquest.
Yeah, he comes in with a plan to take over. He is awarded some kind of recognition of authority. Whereas when Christ comes, he comes with many crowns because he is the conqueror. To conquer. But it doesn't say he does. It says he comes bent on conquest. And he wants that. But when Jesus comes, the imagery used in chapter 19 is that Jesus is literally wading through a sea of blood. That's why the lower garments of his horse are dipped in blood. Because when a rider rides on his horse, he slays the people that are underneath him, and the blood splatter gets all over the bottom of the horse and the bottom of their garments. So when Jesus comes, he isn't trying to do anything. He doesn't. And when this guy comes, he's bent on conquest. But and he uses some kind of authority that was imparted to him to leverage himself into the minds and the hearts of the people. But he comes with authority with that bow, but he doesn't come with arrows as if to slay. So that almost seems like a very, not to be conspiracy theorist, but it's a very political move. You come with the authority, but you don't come to do damage. You want to sway people to your cause, So this guy came. One of the four creatures said, "Hey, look at this dude, this first seal." And of the four creatures, there's one with a man's head, eagle's head, lion's head, face of a human. Those four things correspond to these guys because, once again, to Mike's point, Satan's so bent on copying God and mocking God for what he does that each one has a corresponding look to it. So it's just interesting that in all of Scripture, the use of four is used the most and basically only done here in Revelation. 4 creatures, 4 horsemen, the first 4 seals, the first 4 bowls. The first 4 trumpets. All those things happen in succession. So those are very intriguing piece of the puzzle. So as you look at them, you get to see a lot more depth to it and the unfolding of the conqueror that comes and what he does. So
One thing also with this is, and this happens on all of them, but they are completely waiting on permission by God to do what they're going to do.
exactly.
I find that very interesting. They don't just have free reign to go do whatever. The living creatures say, "All right, your turn. Now go out and do your thing." All right, now your turn.
Yeah.
Go do your thing.
As a matter of fact, the four living creatures are the ones that demand praise from the angels as Jesus comes, and he's the only one that can actually touch the seal. Touch the And the 4 creatures are like, "Hey guys, let's hear it." cheering, let's do it. And, so it's just kind of interesting that those four creatures represent different aspects of the manifestation of God's ability. And these four creatures are trying to mimic that, but they don't have the authority to do it.
Right.
Those four creatures in the throne room of God, they got all the authority they want. But these four have to be allowed to do that. So once that seal is broken, they're allowed to do it. You know what I mean? That type of thing. Sorry.
No.
That's it.
So, well, that idea that he expressed coming out to conquering, and he came out conquering and to conquer at the end of 2. Then we move into the red horse rider. When he opened the second seal, as in the Lamb opening the second seal, I heard the second living creature say, "Come." And out came another horse, bright red. Its rider was permitted to take peace from the earth, so that people should slay one another, and he was given a great sword. Why red?
Red is
War.
blood.
War. What is it good for?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Say it again. So this horseman's given the power to take peace away at the sword. It's weird that the first one is going out conquering and to conquer, and then we see a second one having people slay one another after the first one just went out to conquer. And
Well,
So-
you gotta shove your flagpole in the ground.
say that one more time.
Well, like to go and conquer, all you gotta do is shove your flagpole in the ground.
So with would it be safe to say that these two riders are on the same side?
Seems likely.
It seems likely. Why would one be sent out for war when the other one's out there conquering already? Is there maybe an internal conflict between these two? I found it interesting when Glenn mentioned a minute ago, Pastor Glenn, that kind of the political game, like coming out, kind of almost putting on a persona to get these achievements that are given to them. And then the second one sent out to take peace away after the other one conquered. Well, wasn't there peace already? I mean, I would assume if it conquered everything, maybe this is another sense of Satan trying to gain control through discord by having everyone killing each other, basically.
My study Bible suggests that the second horse or the second rider indicates a civil war rather than two countries fighting each other.
So internal conflict.
Internal conflicts between people who are supposed to be allies turning on each other instead of hostile nations fighting one another.
And how do you end up being deceived? Are these the false gods coming out? Are they trying to disrupt things so that they can make things all better? In a wink of
I don't think it's at the point of, from what I see here, well, using war as deception maybe to make things better, but I mean,
I'm trying to bite my tongue really loud.
I guess say
Because I still have this massive rapture problem, so.
Okay.
And you can all glare, but
Here,
I'm going to give you a quick synopsis. I used to argue
say
with
what you wanna
my
say.
now 93-year-old father-in-law, who's my stepfather-in-law now, and I decided Mike's question, does it really matter? And I decided, we could have these arguments, but I bet you 99.999 he's not going to be around for this. And I'm betting 99.999 I'm not going to be around for this. Now, am I gonna have to work through it from the grave?
No,
Okay.
I mean, if you're,
So
I mean, if
does
you're,
that-
so,
Does that answer your question, Mike, or not? And I'm not trying to say, hey, we
No,
don't have
not
to study
necessarily,
this
because
at all.
I'm trying to figure out the lens in which you would want to, that you would want to study it. And try to, I mean, I know you, I mean,
And I'm not saying it's not worth studying,
and
but
we're
I'm
not
just saying.
we're not gonna understand all this because our mind can't.
Well, think of it this way, if you're gonna look at the landscape, because that's what in any time you look at scripture, you always have to look at it through the lens of the speaker and the audience.
Right.
You always have to. And then you can translate it to 21st century once you understand what the first century author and audience was hearing. So if, sorry you have a problem with a pre-rapture scenario, but think of it this way. How many people we got on this planet? 8 billion? Maybe.
Yeah.
So how many of those do you think are Christians right now? Generously, 1 billion, maybe, right?
Maybe.
So if the rapture comes, instantaneously 1 billion people are missing off the face of the earth. That's going to send a shockwave through everybody. And there's going to be all kinds of weird conspiracy theories, all right? Then some guy shows up, and he has some kind of authority and persuasiveness, and he comes to rally the people together. And in the course of doing that, he causes strife. Some strife comes and causes civil wars. And then you're going to see that the next guy and the next guy, I mean, the fourth guy has the ability to kill a fourth of the people on the planet. So you're 8 million, you're 7 million, or you're 8 billion, you're 7 billion. What's a fourth of 7 billion people? You know what I'm saying? You're talking what, like 2.5 or 1.5, 1.5, 1.7, yeah, 0.75 billion people are gone. As you continue the study, you're going to see that another third is
It's
gone.
taken.
Yeah, are those the people that are being removed? Are those people on the side of
Are they
the
saved or
writer?
are they not
Yeah,
saved?
exactly. Are they saved? Are they on the side of the writer, or are they on the side of God? And I would venture to say that they're probably on the side of God. That's why they are being stripped away. So by the time you get to that 3.5 year mark, you're down to what, like 3 billion people maybe on the face of the earth, whereas you started with 8.
Yeah.
So now you're down to like 3.5 billion people on the earth. Somebody's got to notice, I used to have a neighbor and he ain't here anymore. You know what I mean? Like, if that helps put things in perspective, what you're looking at here. And not only are people dropping like flies, but there's fires, water is undrinkable, the shipping lanes are, we had COVID for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and it shut down shipping, from outside it. Imagine massive meteors striking the shipping lanes, destroying all the ships. So now you can't get those cool things from China anymore that you like so much. You know what I mean? Just imagine what that looks like. If that helps you to
I know. I'm talking more.
Yeah.
rhetorically.
I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
It's just, if you want to, as much as you look at this, people approach it as such a, oh man, it's so complicated stuff. Start putting it in real terms. That's what it looks like. I mean, you're going to be missing people left and right. You're not going to have, COVID-like conditions. You're going to go to the grocery store. You're not going to have the things that you normally like to have because crops are going to be gone. Waters are going to be gone.
Right, which you have to take the mark in order to
be able to get what's left.
Get anything.
Yeah.
And then you're talking who's gonna not do it.
That's right. And those are the people that are going to be, disappearing left and right. So if that helps the perspective, if that's what you're looking for, Mike, in the perspective of what it is, not for you but for everybody. Sorry, once again. Didn't mean to. This will be the last time you invite me to come.
You're always welcome,
We
sir.
appreciate it. All right, it is 8:31. Seth,
Oh, no.
you want to close this out real quick?
Okay.
Thank you.
Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for Bible study and that we can all just come together and just learn about your word and discuss and share our viewpoints and just to have good discussion with each other. Pray that our weeks will go well and that our crappies will go away and we'll only be happies next week. Amen.
Flush it away.